Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Bubblehead Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Um, I am Robert, and this is my co-host Eric. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Robert. I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, doing good, doing good. Ready to jump into some trades here, but first, let's talk about an actual NFL trade. Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers. What did you think?
I was pretty shocked. Like at first, right? Once I got over the initial shock, I was like, all right, this isn't good though, right? Because they're not going to be using him probably with as much volume as they had been in Carolina. But then I realized like the efficiency of the offense and the quality of the play caller. So I don't think this is going to affect the production. We see obviously it was like half a practice he had before last week. So like I didn't expect him to get a huge workload. But going forward, I expect to see a solid RB1 again.
I actually disagree with you. I think maybe in the short term until Elijah Mitchell comes back. Um, but I don't think this is a good trade, both NFL wise and fantasy. Like, I don't think it's a good situation. And I'll say this: they didn't need a running back to be successful. They were not like this is a big price to give up for somebody that really I don't think that they needed or like helps them really at all. Um, like sure he's a good player. I'm not trying to say that he's not a really good running back. I'm one of the best in the NFL, but do the 49ers need a running back? Like they really don't. And I don't think, and I think the volume is not going to be there because I think they're going to utilize a split backfield once Mitchell comes back. And you know, I, I don't see a situation where they're going to do a lot of like passing. Um, which is, I mean, that's good for McCaffrey, but at the same time, a lot of the reason that we like McCaffrey is because he averages like 7, 8 catches a game. It seems like, when he was with Carolina. So, I'm not sold on it being a good trade both sides.
Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't make sense really at all, NFL wise. First of all, for a older running back that has that much recent injury history with that big of a cap hit, that's a lot to give up. Holy crap, that's a lot. Um, I think they have like a fifth and a seventh round pick next year. Is like the only
Yeah.
draft picks they have. Like they effectively have no draft capital. Um, yeah, I mean, he probably won't get as much volume, but like Elijah Mitchell, like I'm sorry, I'm not too worried compared to CMC. We've seen time and time again that Kyle Shannon likes to have a bell cow. That's why we like Jeff Wilson Jr. That's why we liked Elijah Mitchell. Whoever it was, they were getting huge snap percentages. They were getting huge touch percentages. Um, I I tend to agree with the passing. I don't think we're going to see 7, 8, 9 targets a game. Um, but what I definitely think is they're going to be more effective on offense, so he'll have more touchdown likelihood in San Fran. So I think it'll be pretty similar. I mean, what was he? He's like RB4 or something right now. He's been
He's
elite.
yeah, he's
Uh,
not going to change much.
he's probably going to drop a few spots. I see him like RB7, RB8, RB9, like still really good, but probably. I mean, I think at least this year with Jimmy G, I think he'll be fine because I think he's still going to get 3 to 4 catches a game.
I just don't get the trade. Like when I saw it, I was just like, why? Like, why would you give up this much for this? Like,
Yeah, NFL wise, it's a head scratcher. But really, what it does, it just continues to put together this really dominant or potentially dominant team that has huge injury issues. Like defense, they've already lost a bunch of guys. Obviously, Debo, Kittle, right? Elijah Mitchell was hurt. Jimmy G's had plenty of injury issues, and now CMC. It's like if everyone on that roster was healthy and playing well, they're probably the best team in the league.
don't
But
forget Trey Lance is hurt too, right? Like,
yeah,
he's he's also been injury prone his career so far.
personally, we've talked about Lance. I don't really like Lance NFL wise. I prefer Garoppolo honestly, but yeah, that's a lot of injury prone players on one roster, man. You're just like really trying to beat the odds. It seems. I don't get it, from the NFL side, but fantasy wise, maybe a small downtick for CMC, but not that worried.
Yeah.
Like,
All right. Well, do you want to jump into some of the actual fantasy trades here?
yeah, let's get into the meat of the episode. I just went through all my leagues and grabbed a bunch of different trades from the last couple of weeks. There's different scoring formats, so we'll just talk about that. But yeah, let's see. I want to see what you think about these, Robert, and we'll just discuss them.
Yeah. All right. So first one is a 12-team best ball Superflex Titan Premium PPR Dynasty League. So this is Russell Wilson for Marcus Mariota and a 2023 second round pick. So honestly, like if you would have told me that this is what Russell Wilson's value was like going into the season, I would have balked. But I actually think this is a good. I think I would take the second round pick at this point. Like Russell Wilson looks awful.
I mean, Russell does look awful, and it's funny. I remember in the offseason we were talking Russell Wilson, and you said something like, yeah, kind of a short window in his career, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He's got 4 or 5 years, like he's still playing so well, and boy, do I look dumb! Like, holy crap, it looks like his career might just be ending really soon. I mean, is it he's just still trying to figure out how to play with this team? I mean, now he's got 2 injuries he's fighting through. If
you're a quarterback, you can't say like, oh, well, like, is he trying to figure out how to play with this team? Like, he is the team. Like, he is the offense. Like, there is no, like, you either throw it to the wide receiver that's open or, like, there's not open. Like, I don't think it's, like, it's, like,
he keeps missing. He keeps making bad throws. It'd be one thing if he was having, everyone was covered and he had no protection. Like,
he's not going through his reads well, and it looks like he's missing open players.
Russell's like the only player on that team playing poorly. That defense is playing fantastic. The offense, they're getting good protection. The wide receivers are getting open. I mean, obviously Javonte was great, but he's down. But still, they have decent running back play. I mean, it's bad.
What about Mike Evans? Are you confident in Mike Evans tonight?
Yeah, I mean, how can you be? I mean, I haven't looked at his season stats, week to week, but I think he's only had like 1 bad game so far. Like, his floor is great. Like, I don't know if we're talking like daily fantasy, it might, maybe I'll stay away, but
I think this is going to be
what startup league or what lineup league, are you not starting him? Like, that you have 2, 3 better wide receiver options than him.
So I'm actually in a disagreement. I am not confident in Mike Evans tonight. Bill's secondary has been pretty good, but that doesn't mean that I'm not starting him. I think you still have to start him.
They're playing Baltimore.
Baltimore, sorry, but Baltimore, they're I could have sworn they were playing Buffalo, but yeah, Baltimore. So that changes a little bit. I do think Baltimore has a pretty terrible secondary with all the guys coming back from injury. Because Marcus Peters really hasn't looked the same since his injury yet. Nope. We'll see if that changes, but I think he's a solid play every week. Obviously,
Yeah, I mean, ranking him somewhere around like wide receiver 15 probably this week. He's a
little bit touchdown reliant, but
he's getting targets though. Still, like he's still getting good target volume. Yeah. He's almost a lock for 10 points. I'd be surprised if he has more than 2 games below 10 points this year.
So the next trade up here is Hopkins, 2023 5th, 2023 6th, or a 2023 second and a 24 second. I'm taking the seconds and running here.
Even after DeAndre's 10 for 100 performance in his first week back.
The secondary for New Orleans is atrocious.
Yeah,
they were starting like the best player on the secondary last week was Alontae Taylor, and he's a rookie and it's like his first actual game like playing like actual coverage snaps.
Yeah,
like if you're telling me that he's going to go up against a bunch of fucking practice squad bums every week, sure, but I don't particularly care that much about the performance. He's still going to be a really good play this year, but give me the 23 second and 24 second. And let me rebuild my roster.
Okay, so if we knew those seconds were late, at least right for the 23, does that change at all? If so in this league, actually, give a little more context. Uh, they're like second place. They have a really good roster. The one that is acquiring Hopkins, they're a
So
lock for the playoffs. They're pretty good shot of being in the finals type of team. Does that
it
change you a little bit or
it does change
still?
it a little bit. I would actually try to flip that 23 second to like a 24 first.
Yes, do that with every second you can.
Because right, the 24 first, like even if it's later, is still going to be a better value than a 23 a second. But I do still think that people are overvaluing 23, like we talked about last week.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I mean, I am torn. I think this was just a good trade for two different, teams going two different directions. When you're trading, keep your direction in mind. Don't get caught up too much on the value. I mean, Hopkins, he's going to be solid for this year. He could be really good. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, would you, if he finishes, top 10 wide receiver the rest of the season? I wouldn't be shocked.
no, I wouldn't be shocked either. But I think this is like kind of been on his last couple of years. So you want to try to get rid of this value while you have it. And if you're a rebuilding team, which I mean, I'm assuming this is a rebuilding team. If you're
It is, yeah.
like getting rid of Hopkins, you're rebuilding.
Yeah.
So I would try to get as much value as I can. Whether that's getting rid of both seconds and only selling him for one single first and like 24, then I would do that. But I do think it is a good time to sell now before his value crashes, maybe next offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same spot as you. If you're not trying to win a title, win money this year, you don't want Hopkins on your team.
Yeah. And so Lockett or a 23 second and a 23 fourth. This one's a tough one for me because I don't think that's enough value for me to sell. And it doesn't look like Geno Smith is like that much of a downgrade from Russell Wilson, which again is like insane to say. Like if you would have told me that coming into the season that Geno Smith is outproducing Russell Wilson, I would call you a liar, and I wouldn't even I wouldn't believe you even if you told me you're from the future or something. But like I don't know. I couldn't tell you that. That's why I kind of think this is a toss up, but I don't think this is enough for me to sell if I was owning Lockett.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? So Lockett is more valuable than the new Hopkins, even though he's got Kyler. Now Lockett is 1 year younger, but I was a little surprised by this. I mean, Lockett has had a solid year, and especially for a best ball league, which this is, he's more valuable in a best ball league typically because of his boom bust games. But similar situation, I think a person was just trying to get out on an aging wide receiver and get some value. Yeah, if you're going to drove, if you're like, hey, this player could, potentially push me into competing. Yeah, solid deal. But yeah, so far I think we've had some pretty even trades. What about this last one? Do you think this one follows that trend?
It depends on what happens with Josh Jacobs' contract. I am not willing to make this trade without knowing what goes on with his contract. Because if he ends up not re-signing with Oakland, then this is like a really bad trade, in my opinion. Because I don't think it's likely for you. It's very unlikely for running backs to, leave their rookie contract team that they're, the best running back on, and to go in and still be like an RB1 or a high RB2, right? I would almost rather just take my chances on the 23 first and the 24 first than to trade for Jimmy G and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. So this one, this was actually my trade. I gave up the draft capital. I'm trying to win a ship as best ball league. So, right, Jimmy G has more value to me in a best ball league because I'm stacking him with, I got one really good wide QB, and then I've got a few like average, decent ones. So Jimmy, I think, has a little more value in that format. But really, so I made this deal shortly after the Lance injury. It's probably like 2 weeks later, which I got a deal, I think, because Josh Jacobs hadn't like truly blown up the way he has the last few weeks. I mean, he's been on an absolute tear. But to me, this was about Pickens. For me, I wanted Pickens. This is going to be a mid to late pick in 2023. Straight up, I want George Pickens over that. I love George Pickens, the talent. I'm a big fan of the connection with Kenny Pickett. So I really wanted to get that, and then for only 1/4 or a 24 first to be able to get a decent QB and I mean, I was expecting a decent running back, but right now he's been absolutely crushing. I was really happy with that.
Yeah, I do want to answer this question there real quick before I jump into my thoughts there. So, would you take Bateman or Pickens this week? Full PPR.
Who's Pittsburgh playing?
So my thing with Bateman is I don't think Bateman is fully healthy yet, and he really hasn't like dominated targets. But then again, Pickens has also been kind of inconsistent as well. So I'm going to go with Bateman. But this is like a really good question because it's like it's one of those weeks where, or one of those situations where both of them have not been consistent at all. So you're kind of just rolling the dice and hoping you pick the one that has the good week.
So Pickens is playing Philly. Do you think Darius Slay is going to be on Pickens or on Deontay Johnson? Because that's kind of a big.
I almost lean to him going to Pickens, but at the same time, again, it's a toss up, right? Like if let's say that Pickens starts the game hot, why would you not just throw Slay on him? Slay usually doesn't go to the slot. So I would lean towards either Claypool or Pickens, but
I think I'm going Pickens. I mean, he's in the since Pickett's taken over, he's gotten 8, 8, 6, and 6 targets. He's getting consistent targets. He's getting great snap percentage. He's super talented. My thing is, I haven't seen Bateman look the way he did before that injury yet. I mean, the way he started the season was great, so explosive. But one, he really hasn't gotten high target volume at all this year, and I haven't seen him come back from the injury. So I'll lean Pickens, but if I haven't checked out reports on Bateman, if they he's totally good to go, if he's logging full practices all week, I could see the argument for Bateman.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a toss-up still, though.
Yeah, I can see why it's driving you insane because that is a really close one. I'm going to stick with my guy Pickens. I love Pickens, and I really like the connection we've seen with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. So I do want to keep on talking here just a little bit about this trade. So George Pickens I do agree with you. He's kind of the centerpiece of this trade. And then Josh Jacobs is a really nice, competing raw pick.
Yeah.
If you're going to give up the 23 first and 24 first, though, you absolutely have to be competing both years.
Yeah.
And if you're competing both years,
I'm like second with barely, behind in total points. Like I'm right there. So I'm trying to win some money, man, trying to go get that title. And, I can do that by also getting a young player I love.
Yeah. Pickens is a dog. The only reason he's considering Bateman is the entire Buck secondary is hurt. And, Pickens is that guy. I think next year Pickens is going to be one of the top wide receivers in fantasy. But with the rookie throwing it to him and just being a rookie himself, I think consistency is it's up and down. So, that's the big reason I'm hesitant on Pickens and a weekly format lineup. But if it's best ball, send it. But let's move on to the next league type here. So 12 team Superflex tight end premium PPR dynasty. So this is not a best ball.
Yeah, this will start lineup league, basically the same format. Just you're actually having to set your lineup. Which, hey, Robert, what's your take on best ball?
I actually think so. I've never played best ball personally, but I'd like to do some best ball leagues potentially. But if I was to do some more leagues, they would be best ball. I don't think I'm going to go back into start any more new leagues of non-best ball.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Any new league I'm doing is best ball. I got too many damn leagues to be adding more lineups to set.
All right, question: Brian Robinson or Tyler Algier this week in a standard league? I'm going to go with Tyler Algier. I think there is less competition there for the running back spot. I think Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are just going to split touches. But I think this decision really comes down to who gets a touchdown. If somebody gets a touchdown.
Who's Atlanta got? See, Robinson is playing Indy, and I like that matchup a lot. Let's see. This is great podcasting. So Atlanta's playing Carolina. Actually, Carolina's got a good defense. I mean, look what they just did to Tampa. I know Tampa is kind of in shambles right now, but I'm going to go with Robinson just on the matchup. Right, you're not worried about the passing, because Brian Robinson isn't getting passing game work barely at all. So it's standard league, right? Just I'm assuming by standard you mean what used to be considered standard. The at least most popular format, ESPN. Their new standard is PPR. But yeah, if it's non-PPR, I'll go Robinson. I like the matchup, and I mean he could definitely fall in the end zone against that team.
Yeah, that's really your question is which one do you think is going to go into the find the end zone? I lean Tyler Algier. I think he's going to get more volume. I think he's kind of a safer option, but Brian Robinson, he does have a good matchup, but I don't think Carolina's like that bad of a matchup either. I think they could easily get some points against them. Like they're a really good defense, but they're also tanking. So
I don't know. Are they? Look at what PJ Walker just did to Tampa Bay. Dude, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think PJ Walker could be better than every QB they've had in the last 2 years.
I mean, he's played before. He's just an average guy. But
that's kind of my point. Is the other ones are all below average. The QB play at Carolina the last couple of years has been terrible. I am so sorry, Panthers fans. I'm sure you feel terrible for him too, right, Robert? The huge Saints fan here.
At this point, I don't feel bad for him because I see it in our future.
Yeah, right? What is up with that? Starting Dalton over a healthy Jameis, huh?
Well, so the funny thing is, right, is Jameis actually is having trouble identifying the mic at the line. That's what the inside reports are from Saints camp. So I can kind of understand it, but
yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
But let's jump back into Alex Madison or a 2023 second, a 23 fifth, and a 23 sixth. If this gets sent to me and I have Alex Madison, I am absolutely taking this trade 100 times out of 100.
Even if you're a Dalvin Cook owner and you're trying to guard against injury to, go and compete in the playoffs?
Give me that second pick. Give me that second pick. I'll take my chances.
Yeah, I mean, I lean that way too, but I just kind of want to play devil's advocate. That's the only scenario where I could see it being worth it is, you're like, hey, I'm thin at running back, but at least if I have Madison, that way if Cook goes down, I'll still be good there. I can see it. You could talk me into it, but
because you know what I think I can get with a 23 seconds this year? I think I can get like a Blake Corum. I think I can get, like a Sean Tucker or something like that, right? Like where we're projecting them to be a legitimate potential NFL player, right? Like they have potential starter ability. Now, obviously, draft capital and situation is going to matter there, but I really want to see what I can get with that 23 second pick and maybe get a really good player out of it, or at least a 1 year player that I can trade for incredible value, like Dameon Pierce. Like Dameon Pierce's value is up there right now. Yes. And if you're not trying to sell Dameon Pierce, you've got to try to trade Dameon Pierce. But we got a question about should I trade Kelsey and Zeke for Fournette, Waller, and Pittman? Kelsey, I'll let you start off here.
So I'm just hearing it. I'm assuming it's a redraft league, right? Would you say the same?
Yeah, well, let's just assume redraft real quick. Apizar, if you Was it a dynasty league or a redraft? If you don't mind answering that for us.
Yeah, I'll just talk about it as a redraft because that's kind of what I've been thinking. Let's assume it is redraft. I mean, Zeke, right? He's hurt. He's likely to miss this game. It's yeah, redraft. Okay, so let's look at it this way. I definitely want Fournette more than Zeke. But to me, who's the best player? Oftentimes, especially in the redraft, my question is who's the best player in the deal? And to me, it's easily Kelsey. So
So
because of that,
Kelsey
I'd lean that way.
is also potentially going to miss this week, maybe.
Well, they're on
We'll
bye.
see.
That's why they're missing. They're on bye.
I thought he got hurt too, but maybe he didn't.
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. But current team is Kyler, Swift, Brian Robinson, Waddle, Olave, Kelsey, and Ayuk. So yeah, so I'm definitely keeping Kelsey in this situation. You already have a pretty solid group of like running backs and wide receivers. You might maybe need some depth, but in this situation, like what I would like to do is you just got to tank the bye week really at that point. Like, you know, here I think you're still going to be pretty solid even though during Kelsey's bye week here. But if your bench is solid enough to prevent you from like really losing out, like, you know, you can easily get a few wins even during bye weeks. But you know, Olave looks like he's going to be a star. Brian Robinson's like kind of your worst running back of the two, obviously, but I'm willing to just kind of sit with this team and, you know, figure it out. I'm not trying to move Kelsey for Waller because one, Waller's not been good.
He hasn't been healthy, you know, like.
Well, he hasn't been good even the weeks he is healthy.
I know, but you know what I mean? Like, at least if he's on the field, I believe he could turn it around. You know, like the fact that he's not producing and he's battling health issues, that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, so if you have Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, and Mike Williams with Tony, I'm just keeping Kelsey and Zeke, and I'm going to stay with that. What do you think, Eric? Are you on the same page?
I mean, I am so tight end, like pro tight end. Like, so I lean towards tight ends because I think it is such a huge advantage. Like when you have Kelsey or you have Mark Andrews, I mean, they're scoring so many more points. I tend to lean, especially with the rest of the team we're talking about. I mean, Kareem Hunt is very possible could get traded, right? And all of a sudden could be a really solid running back. So, yeah, and then you got Mike Williams coming back later on to shore up that wide receiver position. Like, not to mention, guess what? Matt Ryan also got sat for the rest of the year. I'm not exactly excited about Sam Ehlinger. Like, if y'all watch a lot of Texas games, he did his damage on the ground. Like, he's not going to be throwing the ball 10 times to Pittman the way Matt Ryan has.
Yeah, so I wanted to go to the next question here. Dubes versus Bills or Gus Edwards versus Tampa, full PPR. So I'm going to go with Gus Edwards. I don't trust anybody in the Packers offense right now.
Well, first of all, right, they're playing that vaunted Buffalo defense that you were talking about. So I don't like that. I think part of it is you got to like kind of decide what, or not decide, but like, what do you need? Like, are you projected to win? Are you projected to have a close matchup? Are you projected to get blown out? Because to me, Gus Edwards has the floor easily because I think 10 touches at a minimum is what Edwards is going to see. And Edwards is one of those players that averages above 4 yards to carry, like always. Like he's closer to 5 usually. So there's 40, 50 points for you easy right there. If he gets in the end zone, you got double digits. Right? Dubs, I don't know. Like he could eat. I mean, he put up a 0 last week. Like, you know what I mean? So floor matters, Gus Edwards. If you're like, dude, I need a 20 spot, you know, or a 25 spot, I think Dubs might be more likely. But even then, I mean, we just saw first game back, Edwards got what, 18 and a half points. He had the 2 TDs. Like, I'm with you. I'm going to go Gus Edwards here.
Yeah. So jumping back into the trades here, Jamal Williams or 24-second. I'm going to stick on this draft pick side here again. This is a dynasty league. Jamal Williams is it's like a 5-game rental. Like at this point, like Jamal Williams was like really good at the beginning of the season with Swift, but I don't think that's going to continue. That was all like touchdown luck, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this was someone taking advantage of a hot start by Jamal Williams. I think this deal was probably like 2 weeks ago. So Jamal's kind of, cooled off a bit and since then. But second round pick, I don't care if it's in 2024. We already talked about how good the 24 class is. That's really good value for a player that only time I'm going to be happy starting him, not even happy, only time I'd be acceptable starting in my lineup is Swift is out and I've, have crap depth or I'm on buys or I have injuries. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not interested.
Yeah. So moving on to Christian Kirk, Rondell Moore, or Chris Godwin, Damian Harris. I'm taking Chris Godwin, Damian Harris, and I'm running. Chris Godwin is the best player in this deal. Damian Harris is a guy that could very easily be a RB2 next year if he lands in the right spot. Damian Harris is a talented running back that is in a anemic situation in New England, which is funny because both of our teams suck this year. So, great on us. But
oh my God, don't talk. I'm not talking about that Monday night game. That was disgusting.
So, do you have any comments about the trade?
So, I think it's a little closer than you're saying, but I agree. I'm going to go with the Godwin side. I think Godwin's the best player, but here's the thing. I think it's pretty clear that Tom Brady is going to retire after this year. I mean, it's Tom fucking Brady. Like, if anyone's going to prove you wrong about coming back, it's him. But I think he's going, and they have no one, ready there, unless they can, get a Jimmy Garoppolo.
I see what I'm doing with Chris Godwin. I'm going to take him for this year, and then I'm going to try to sell him as early as possible in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to get I don't think you're going to get a lot of people. I think everyone's going to have that mentality, though. Like once the fantasy playoffs are over, once you can no longer help you in 2022 fantasy season, like everyone's be like, well, he's a 27-year-old receiver next year. He's pretty sure he's 26. He's either 26, 27 this year. So, he's still young-ish. Like he's not old, but he's aging. So, it's like how long can you wait for a good QB, whereas Christian Kirk is like the obvious number one there. Although to me, I tend to.
What if they draft a wide receiver?
That's what I was going to say. I tend to, when I'm looking like projecting, a year out, 2-3 years out in Dynasty, I'm looking more at talent than situation because situation can change like that. I mean, look at all the huge wide receivers that got traded in last offseason. So Christian Kirk could easily have himself, looking at like Jordan Addison or Jackson Smith-Njigba right next to him. It's like, well, all of a sudden you're not getting crazy targets anymore, and you're, a wide receiver 3 at best. Like, so because of that, the uncertainty with Christian Kirk's long term, I'll go with Godwin too.
Yeah. So then Deontay Johnson, Amon-Ra, or Tyreek and Judy. I think this is the closest trade we've had. So Tyreek's here more your contender play, whereas Deontay Johnson, Amon-Ra, I think both of those guys are more your rebuilding trade side. I almost lean towards, and that's pretty much exactly how I view it. If I'm a contender, I want Tyreek, Judy. If I'm rebuilding, I want Deontay and Amon-Ra.
So this is another one of my trades. I'm kind of middle of the pack. I'm I think I'm in like 5th place. If I get a little healthier and things break right, I could definitely make some noise in the playoffs. But I'm by no means like a lock to be one of the top 2 teams, put it that way. But to me, it's like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyreek, obviously, right? This was like 2 weeks ago, and Amon-Ra's, just getting injuries after injuries. So like I might look stupid because of this, but my thought was Amon-Ra and Tyreek are going to score pretty close. Like Tyreek is probably going to score more points overall, but I thought Amon-Ra would be a lot more consistent. That being said, I'm probably wrong on that because Tyreek just continues to show how amazing of a player he is. Like I just didn't expect to see the volume he's getting. And then Deontay Johnson, like we just talked about how much we love Pickens, but Deontay Johnson is still easily the number one target in that offense. He's getting like 10 plus targets a game. He's just not really converting on them. And he has the contract, so he's going to be there. So, and, honestly, I'll tell you what, I'm out on Judy. I'm sick of it. Like, I'm just so sick of waiting for Judy to do things. I love Judy as a prospect. I know I had a lot of Judy, but I think this was my final share of trading. I traded, in case you didn't tell, I got Amon-Ra and I got Deontay. So, yeah, I liked it because it got me a little younger, but I also think it keeps me competitive this year.
Yeah. I like Deontay and Amon-Ra. And the thing is also, too, about Amon-Ra and Deontay, too, to a much lesser extent, is Amon-Ra and Deontay probably will have better quarterback play next year. With Deontay, you're looking at a year 2 jump for Pickett.
Yeah.
And Amon-Ra, you're looking at getting a better rookie. So, like, Jared Goff is not a good quarterback. In case anybody was curious, didn't know that. Jared Goff's not a good quarterback. But you know what? They're probably this Lions team looks like they're going to draft a quarterback next year because they're a really bad football team.
Yeah.
And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they end up having to fire their coach. I know a lot of people really like Dan Campbell. He's kind of like, that guy that everybody seems to like, but Dan Campbell doesn't seem like he's doing it. And we'll see what happens. But I think if they're like a 2-14, 3-13 football team, or 3-14, I forget about the 17th game there, 3-14. If they're a 2-win football team or a 3-win football team, I think they might be considering firing their coach and bringing in a rookie quarterback. So I think that's interesting for both of those two guys. But moving on to the next league here, twin team, one quarterback, PPR dynasty. So no super flex. Njoku, 24 third, or 24 fifth, or Rondale Moore. I'm taking Njoku and I'm taking the picks here. I think Rondale Moore is a little bit overrated. With Hollywood Brown there, I think Hollywood is a better slot receiver than Moore. And to be honest with you, I think that's where Moore's value is best at, is in the slot. And I'm just not interested in Moore. He's too small for me to be successful in the NFL. Unless he can perform unless he can turn his game around and make it a Tyreek Hill type of game, which is not easy to do. You have to be a crazy athlete to play like him. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, let me just respond to the Tyreek Hill comment first. He is not Tyreek Hill. Some people like to make those assumptions or those comparisons, in his days in Purdue. He was dynamic in Purdue, but Tyreek is at a different level. Not only is he way quicker and way faster, he's stronger. Tyreek, for his size, is freakishly strong. I've never seen a player with his strength, explosion, agility, and speed combo. He's like a velociraptor almost. He's like the ultimate wide receiver. He really is special. So this happened right after the Hollywood Brown trade. I think what happened is the Rondale Moore owner capitalized on is Rondale Moore going to take over? Is he going to all of a sudden get a lot more targets now that Hollywood's gone? Now I think it's possible because now I'm pretty sure Hollywood was mainly on the outside. Actually, I think Rondale started to look good, right? He started the season injured, and he was starting to look pretty good. And I think that's because he was getting some good targets in the slot. Of course, game one, because they traded for Robbie Anderson. Now, Anderson only played, 10, 15 snaps maybe?
Yeah, so I think what the end game is going to look like is I think Hollywood's going to play inside in the slot. And then I think they'll have Hopkins for another few years. And then I think they're going to draft a guy to play another outside, because I think Hollywood's just a better receiver outside or in the slot. From what you get from Rondale Moore, I think you would be better served putting Hollywood in the slot in that situation. So I just think Rondale Moore is maybe a 1-year rental at that, but he's not even a very good 1-year rental. The only downside here with Njoku is Njoku just got hurt, which obviously when this trade happened, Njoku was not hurt. I'm assuming, at least.
No, yeah, this happened right before the injury.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We talked about Njoku a few weeks ago, and you were talking about how you always liked him, but you hadn't seen the consistency. Are you starting to get back on the Njoku train maybe, because Njoku has had some really good weeks in a row here.
He was having a really good week before he got hurt. I'm not on the Njoku train entirely, but I am for that price tag. Excuse me.
Yeah. Especially, right, to get picks back for Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know it's a third and fifth, but give me some shots. Just give me picks. Like especially the way I play, and I know this league is that way. Is they have huge taxi squads, so it's not like you have to like drop someone to use the pick, which is why I like to have large taxi squads. Because if you have a very short one or a non-existent one, like why take a super deep flyer? It's like I already have super deep flyers on my bench. Like I'm not going to drop this one for that one. So I always like to have tons of late picks to just throw darts at players away.
Yeah. So the next trade on here, I'm going to talk about both of these at the same time.
Yeah. So just to say, these trades happened within like 25 minutes of each other.
So Stephon Diggs or Devontae Smith, 23 seconds, 24 second, or Stephon Diggs or Dameon Pierce. So if you had told me that I was having to give up Dameon Pierce for Stephon Diggs, I would laugh and gladly give you Dameon Pierce for Stephon Diggs. One, Dameon Pierce is a 1-year rental right now. You have to look at Dameon Pierce's value like it's a 1-year rental. Why? Because he's a 4th-round running back. 4th-round running backs and higher picks. They generally only have 1 year of like legitimate situational value, right? Houston could very easily take a swing on a guy like Bijan Robinson in the draft. They could very easily take a really high running back that's going to take away all of Dameon Pierce's value, right? So it's the same thing with James Robinson. James Robinson was a RB1 his rookie season.
High. He was like RB3. He was really high.
And then immediately after that, they end up drafting Travis Etienne with the 1st-round pick. Now, obviously, Etienne got hurt his rookie year, missed the entire season. So, he was able to maintain his value for an extra year. But I am not banking on that value to stick. I want to get rid of it as soon as possible. And if I can get a Stephon Diggs for it, that's a top 2 pick in a rookie draft for me.
So this is kind of nuts. So let's give some context. The Stephon Diggs was on the 0-5 team at the time. 0-5, which is funny because they're actually 2-5 now. They won 2 straight after this trade because they actually did have a good team, but they just like kept somehow, getting beat. But anyways, the team, there was like he put on the chat. It's like I don't know what's happening, but like I can't win to save my life, so I'm going to sell my older players. And this was what he took for Stephon Diggs, right? This is a player that's trying to start a rebuild. So I get it. Get Stephon Diggs off your roster if you're starting a rebuild. He's an amazing player, but he's older, So get those points off your roster. But this is not how you do it, folks. This is not how you do it. Like, first of all, don't trade for a running back when you're starting a rebuild. And especially don't trade for one that's a 4th-round draft pick.
You have to take picks.
The only reason that he's getting this volume is because their other options is Rex freaking Burkhead, people. Like, this is not Breece Hall. You know what I mean? This is not Ken Walker. Like, okay, that's one thing. You want to go and get a young running back like that? Okay. I still don't really love it, but okay. Like, you were talking about 4th-round pick, right? In the later draft. What's your line? Like, in terms of NFL draft capital where you're like, okay, I'm paying attention to you as a running back. Third round, same thing. Yep. Basically 100. You got to be about the 100th pick or better in the NFL draft. And like, if you just look historically, it is proven time and time again that there is this huge drop off after day 2, right? When you go into that 4th round. But yeah, I mean, Diggs is so good. Like, and then, so what happened is the team, actually, me, I saw this. And here's the other part. The person that had Dameon Pierce, they took him at 201. They liked him. They were the worst team in the league last year. They were the worst team in this year. They were a hard-term rebuild. And for a couple of weeks, he had been like, yo, someone come get Dameon Pierce. Like, he was trying to rebuild right. He was trying to get the the young running back off his team. He was trying to get, first of all, the young running back that probably is going to be a 1-year wonder, but wasn't getting the value he liked, and then floated this out there and he got it. So it's like, why are you going to get Stephon Diggs if you're a hard rebuild? Well, the value is just too good, because within 30 minutes he turned around and got the trade above it. He got back to Devonta in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, so I do like Devontae Smith 23-second, 24-second. I would like to see a first in there. I'd like to see a 23 first or a 24 first. But I if you're a rebuilding team, you want the Devontae Smith side, obviously. Just because your Stephon Diggs is probably not in your timeline. So I get that side. The Dameon Pierce side makes no sense to me. Just no sense to me.
That is fantasy mismanagement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I thought that this is what I paid actually to get Stephon Diggs. I'm a very good team. I think I'm only like 4-3, but like I'm a good team. I've just gotten a little bad luck with scoring against. But yeah, I mean, I love Devonta Smith, but I don't think he's going to be, better than like wide receiver 20 this year and maybe even next year. So, I was very happy to give up a couple of seconds and Devonta to go and get Stephon Diggs, because that's going to really give me a good chance at winning this season.
Yes, I do want to do one more trade here. So this was in a 12-team PPR league redraft. So it was Adam Thielen, Chris Godwin, and James Robinson for Devontae Adams and AJ Dillon. Which side do you want there?
Godwin, Thielen, and J-Rob for Devontae
and AJ Dillon. And this was about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so this is pre-New York Jets trade, which I think – what do you think about that trade, actually? I think it helps James Robinson.
I don't think it really does much in terms of – he's going to get more touchdown volume. He's not going to get any receiving volume.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the first and second down back. But, hey, they want to run the ball a lot, so he could get pretty decent volume in that. But anyways, to your trade – I think you got to go Devontae Adams. I mean, he's an elite player. He's a top 5 wide receiver most likely this season. And Godwin, I mean, is he really healthy from the ACL and then the did he tweak his hammy? What did he do?
Yeah, I think it was a hammy that he hurt.
I think it was. Anyways, he had first game he did look really good, and then he tweaked it. Missed a few games, and I don't know. He doesn't look. Chris Godwin, like he doesn't look like one of the best wide receivers in the league like he did pre-injury.
Well, the Bucs offense in general just hasn't been very good either.
Yeah, they really need to circle the wagons, because this is looking to be like a really ugly last hurrah for Tom Brady. I think they're going to turn around. I think they're going to, figure it out. I think they'll be a solid playoff team. But anyways, and then Adam Thielen, I mean, he's just like, what is he, a wide receiver 3 at best? Like he's fine. Like I'm just going to go with Devontae Adams. That's what I want.
Yeah, so this is a trade that I did. I'm the one who received Devontae Adams and AJ Dillon. I actually thought that Devontae Adams and James and AJ Dillon are both the two like best pieces in this, right? I thought James Robinson before the trade, especially, was a guy who he had already seen his value peak, and I thought AJ Dillon is an injury away from being an RB1, and is still a solid like RB3 ish without an injury. So that was kind of my thought, but.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Dillon, he started off the year well, but man, similar to Tampa, that Green Bay offense has been a mess. So I like Dillon as like a hold player for this year. Like, let's see, can they get their offense clicking? Or like you said, obviously, if Aaron Jones goes down, AJ Dillon all of a sudden is going to get a lot of volume. But to me, it's all about Devontae Adams. Well done. Hopefully I mean, honestly, like, what did you really lose? Like, you traded one starter and a couple of depth players for one better starter and a depth player.
Well,
Like,
the funny thing is about that roster is it's just decimated by injuries, just like every roster I have, which I don't understand how that works, but I have just another roster just decimated by injuries, and I'm somehow managing to compete with a team that I'm losing. I lost Javonte Williams. Alvin Kamara looks like a shell of himself, or at least the offense looks like a shell of itself. He started to pick it up recently. I have Michael Thomas. I have Devontae Smith. I have Elijah Moore, who's basically out. Like, but that team is still doing well. It's still managing to compete, and I think it's going to start looking better if I can get some guys healthy. But yeah, do you have any other trades you want to talk about today, or?
no, unfortunately, that's that was my list. I mean, there were some other trades in there through my list, but most of them were like, I'm not even gonna bring it up. Like, I mean, we brought up stuff on Diggs and for Dameon Pierce, so you can imagine what some of these other ones were like. Right. If you see any of these trades and you're like, oh my God, that is such a joke. Like, how did you get that? You know how? By asking, by sending the offer. So make moves, send the offer, talk to people. You'll be surprised how different people value things. Like, there's good deals to be out there. So go and make your team better.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. You have to just dangle offers out there and see what people say. Like, obviously, you're going to get some that are rejected, but see what's out there. So, but yeah, we thank everybody for listening. Good discussion today in the chat. Glad to see that. And we hope everybody joins us again next week. And look forward to seeing everybody. And hope everybody has a good week.
All right. Thank you. Yep. I appreciate it, Robert.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.